3 years ago, my life broke. Not metaphorically, actually broke. My marriage ended, my business failed, my father died, and within 6 months I was sitting in an empty apartment with nothing left of the life I'd built. I felt like a shattered vase, like someone had taken everything I was and smashed it against concrete. And the worst part wasn't the breaking, it was the shame. The feeling that I was damaged goods now, that no one would want the broken version of me, that I needed to hide the cracks, pretend I was still whole, fake it until I could somehow glue myself back together invisibly. And then someone showed me a picture of a Kintsugi bowl, a ceramic bowl that had shattered into dozens of pieces and been repaired with gold. And they said, this bowl is more valuable now than it was before it broke, because the gold makes it unique. The cracks make it irreplaceable. The breaking made it beautiful. Today, I'm going to teach you what I learned, that you don't need to hide your broken parts. You need to fill them with gold. I know why you're here. You feel broken, maybe from divorce, loss, failure, trauma, rejection, or just the accumulated weight of disappointments. And you've been trying to hide it. You put on a brave face, you pretend you're fine, you scroll through social media seeing everyone else's seemingly perfect lives, and you wonder, why am I the only one who's shattered? You feel shame about your failures, your scars, your imperfections. You believe that broken things lose value, that you've lost value, and you're desperately trying to appear whole when you feel like you're falling apart inside. Here's what our culture teaches us. Wholeness equals worthiness. Perfection equals value. Your scars diminish you. Damage must be hidden, fixed invisibly, or you're somehow damaged goods, unworthy of love, success, or belonging. Western culture teaches you to hide your wounds, erase your failures, and pretend you've never been broken. We Photoshop our flaws, we filter our faces, we curate our lives on social media to look flawless. We're taught that if people see our cracks, they'll reject us, so we spend all our energy maintaining this exhausting performance of perfection. But what if everything you've been taught is backwards? What if Japanese Kintsugi philosophy reveals something that changes everything? That your broken parts are where your beauty lives, not despite the breaking, but because of it. When pottery shatters and is repaired with gold lacquer, it becomes more valuable than the original. The golden cracks aren't flaws, they're the masterpiece. This isn't just about pottery, it's about you. Your divorce, your failure, your trauma, your loss. These aren't making you less, they're making you unique, irreplaceable, and if you're willing to pour gold into them through self-compassion and meaning-making, extraordinarily beautiful. Let me tell you how this all began. In the late 1500s, there lived a powerful shogun named Ashikaga Yoshimasa. He was a man of exquisite taste, a collector of beautiful things, and he owned a tea bowl that was his most prized possession. This wasn't just any bowl. It was a priceless Chinese ceramic passed down through generations of his family, a masterpiece of craftsmanship, perfectly formed, flawlessly glazed. He used it in tea ceremonies, held it with reverence, treasured it above all his possessions. And then one day, it slipped from his hands. It fell to the floor and shattered. Not just cracked, shattered into dozens of pieces. The shogun was devastated. This irreplaceable treasure, this piece of his family's history, destroyed in one careless moment. But he refused to accept the loss. He gathered every fragment, every sliver, every tiny piece, and he sent the bowl to China, to the finest ceramic craftsman in the world, with instructions: repair this, make it whole again, spare no expense. Months passed, and finally the bowl returned. The Chinese artisans had done their absolute best. They had used the most advanced repair technique available at the time, metal staples. They drilled tiny holes in each fragment and used metal clasps to hold the pieces together. The bowl was functional,
It held water. It was stable. Technically, it was repaired. But when the Shogun saw it, his heart broke all over again. Because the bowl looked wounded. The metal staples were ugly, crude, obvious. Every break was highlighted by industrial-looking clasps. The bowl looked like a broken thing desperately trying to pretend it wasn't broken. Its beauty was destroyed. Its soul was gone. The Shogun couldn't bear to use it, but he also couldn't bear to throw it away. So he gave it to a local Japanese artisan, a master craftsman who worked with ceramics and lacquer, and he made an unusual request. He said, "Fix this bowl, but don't hide what happened to it. Don't pretend it never broke. Honor the breaking. Make it part of the bowl's story. Make the damage visible, but make it beautiful." The artisan took the broken bowl home and meditated on this request for weeks. How do you honor a break? How do you make damage beautiful? How do you celebrate a wound instead of hiding it? This went against everything he'd been taught. Repair was supposed to be invisible. Damage was supposed to be erased. But the Shogun had asked her something different, something that required a completely new way of thinking. And then, one morning, the answer came to him. He understood. He took the broken pieces and began reassembling them, carefully, perfectly, with the patience of someone who understood that this was sacred work. But instead of using invisible adhesive, instead of trying to make the breaks disappear, he did something no one had ever done before. He mixed lacquer with powdered gold, real gold, precious metal, and he used this golden mixture to fill every crack, every seam, every place where the bowl had shattered. It took him months. Every line had to be perfect. Every crack had to be honored. And when he finally finished, something miraculous had happened. The bowl wasn't just repaired, it was transformed. The golden cracks ran through it like rivers of light, like lightning frozen in ceramic, like veins of precious metal threading through the clay. The breaks, which had seemed like the death of the bowl's beauty, had become the most beautiful part. The damage had become art. When the Shogun saw the repaired bowl, he wept, not from sadness this time, but from revelation. This bowl that had broken, that he had mourned as lost, it was now more beautiful than it had ever been whole. It had a story now. You could see its history written in gold across its surface. It had survived. It had been honored. And those golden cracks, they made it unique, one of a kind, irreplaceable in a way it never was when it was perfect. Because perfect bowls could be replicated, but this bowl, with its specific pattern of golden breaks, this could never be duplicated. This was the only one that existed in the entire world. The Shogun began using the bowl again in his tea ceremonies, but now when guests saw it, they didn't see a repaired object, they saw a masterpiece. They saw beauty born from breaking. And word spread. Other people began bringing their broken ceramics to artisans requesting the same treatment. Don't hide the breaks, fill them with gold. Honor what shattered, make the damage part of the story. This became Kintsugi, the art of golden repair. And it spread through Japan not just as a technique for fixing pottery, but as a philosophy for living. Now let me tell you about Sarah. She came to see me 3 years after her divorce. She was 42 years old, successful in her career, loved by her friends, objectively fine on the outside, but inside she felt shattered. She couldn't shake the feeling that the divorce had broken something in her that couldn't be fixed, that she was damaged now, that no one would want her broken self.
She'd tried everything to heal. She'd been to therapy for 2 years. She'd tried dating, thinking maybe a new relationship would make her feel whole again. She tried the whole journey of self-discovery, traveled, taken up new hobbies, done all the things people told her would help her move on and get over it. But deep down, nothing changed. She still felt like a cracked vase, like someone had dropped her and she'd never quite fit back together right. And the worst part was the shame, the crushing shame that followed her everywhere. She kept her divorce hidden in conversations.
When people asked about her marriage, she'd deflect, change the subject, offer the sanitized version that made it sound mutual and amicable and totally fine. She was terrified that if people knew the truth, if they knew how messy it had been, how broken she felt, they would see her differently. They would see her as less, as damaged goods, as someone who had failed at the most important relationship of her life. She told me she felt like she was living two lives, the public life, where she smiled and pretended everything was great, and the private life, where she cried in her car on the way home from work, where she felt profoundly lonely even when surrounded by people, because no one knew the real her, the broken her, the her with cracks running through her heart. I listened to all of this, and then I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture. It was a photograph of a Kintsugi tea bowl, a simple ceramic bowl, white clay, with golden lines running through it like rivers. The cracks were clearly visible. You could see exactly where the bowl had broken, but the gold made it stunning, breathtaking, more beautiful than any perfect bowl could ever be. I said to Sarah, "What if your divorce isn't a crack that makes you less valuable? What if it's a crack where gold goes?" She stared at the picture for a long time, her eyes filled with tears, and then she said something I will never forget. She said, "I've been trying to glue myself back together invisibly, like if I just work hard enough, if I just stay positive enough, if I just fake it hard enough, no one will notice I was ever broken. But I'm so tired. I'm exhausted from pretending, and I'm so lonely because I'm not letting anyone see the real me, the broken me, the me with cracks running through her." I asked her, "What if you stopped hiding the cracks? What if you started filling them with gold instead?" And she looked at me like I'd just given her permission to exhale for the first time in 3 years. Over the next year, Sarah did something radical. She stopped hiding her divorce. Not in a way that was oversharing or dumping trauma on everyone she met, but in a way that was honest. When people asked about her marriage, she told the truth. She said, "My marriage ended. It was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. It broke me in ways I'm still processing, and I'm different now because of it." She stopped offering the sanitized version. She stopped pretending it was no big deal. She acknowledged, "This happened. It mattered. It changed me." And something beautiful started happening. When Sarah was honest about her pain, other people felt safe being honest about theirs. Friends who had always seemed perfect started sharing their own stories of loss and failure and heartbreak. Colleagues opened up about their struggles. Even strangers sometimes would hear her story and say, "Me too. I thought I was the only one who felt broken, but you just gave me permission to stop pretending." Sarah also started doing the inner work of meaning-making. She stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What is this teaching me?" And the answers came. The divorce taught her what she actually needed in a partnership. It revealed patterns she'd never seen before, ways she'd been abandoning herself to keep the peace, needs she'd been ignoring for years. It showed her that she was stronger than she thought, that she could survive something that felt like it would destroy her. It gave her a level of compassion for other people's pain that she'd never had when her life looked perfect. And slowly, month by month, something shifted. The shame began to lift. The feeling of being damaged goods started to fade. Not because the divorce stopped mattering, not because she got over it or moved on in the way people told her to, but because she stopped trying to erase it. She stopped trying to pretend it didn't break her. She started seeing the divorce not as a failure that diminished her, but as a crack where gold could go, and she poured gold into that crack. Gold in the form of self-compassion, gold in the form of the lessons she learned, gold in the form of the deeper, more authentic version of herself that emerged from the breaking. The last time I saw Sarah, she looked different, not in an external way, but in her energy, in her presence. She had this quality of groundedness, of realness that hadn't been there before. And she said to me, "I'm not the same person I was before the divorce. I'm not even trying to get back to who I was, because who I am now is better. Not because the divorce was good. It wasn't. It was awful. But because I stopped trying to pretend it didn't break me. I stopped hiding the cracks. And when I made space for the gold, when I poured compassion and meaning into those broken places, I became someone more real, more whole, more beautiful than I ever was when I was trying to be perfect. So what is the gold? What does it actually mean to pour gold into your cracks? Let me break this down for you. Gold in Kintsugi is lacquer mixed with precious metal. It's not the original material, it's something new that holds the old pieces together while simultaneously making them more beautiful. In your life, the gold is this: pain transformed through compassion into wisdom, strength, and beauty. Here's the alchemy. Pain alone is just pain. It doesn't automatically make you better or stronger or wiser. People can experience terrible things and become bitter, hard, closed off from life. Trauma doesn't automatically lead to growth. Loss doesn't automatically create wisdom. Breaking doesn't automatically create beauty. But here's what does. Pain plus compassion equals gold. When you meet your pain with kindness instead of shame, when you hold your broken parts gently instead of hating them, when you ask, what can I learn from this, instead of why did this happen to me, that's when the transformation happens. That's when pain becomes gold. The gold is self-compassion. It's placing your hand on your heart when you're hurting and saying, this is hard. I'm in pain. May I be kind to myself in this moment. It's treating yourself the way you would treat a beloved friend going through the same thing, with gentleness, with patience, with the understanding that healing takes time and that broken things don't repair overnight. The gold is the meaning you make from the breaking. It's the story you tell yourself about what happened. Not the victim story, I'm broken and that's all I'll ever be, but the survivor story. I broke, and I'm still here. And I learned something from this breaking that I couldn't have learned any other way. I gained empathy I didn't have before. I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed. I found out who I really am when everything else is stripped away. The gold is the wisdom earned from experience. It's the kind of knowledge that doesn't come from books or advice, but from living through hard things. It's knowing what actually matters because you've lost things that don't. It's understanding the preciousness of ordinary moments because you've survived extraordinary pain. It's having compassion for others in crisis because you remember what it felt like to be there.
The gold is the connections that form when you stop hiding your cracks, when you let people see your wounds, when you tell the truth about your struggles. When you stop performing perfection, something shifts in your relationships. The shallow connections fall away, and the deep ones, the real ones, they grow stronger. Because authenticity attracts authenticity. Vulnerability creates safety for others to be vulnerable. And suddenly you're not alone anymore. You're in community with other Kintsugi people, other beautifully broken, golden cracked survivors. The gold is who you become through the process of healing, not the person you were before you broke. That person is gone. You can't go back. But you can become someone new, someone deeper, someone more real. Someone whose beauty comes not from an unblemished surface, but from visible evidence of having survived. Now, I need you to understand something important. There are different kinds of breaking in life, and each kind requires a different kind of gold. Let me walk you through the 3 main types of breaks you might be experiencing right now. The first type is the identity break. This is when who you thought you were shatters. Maybe you lost your job and you realize your entire identity was wrapped up in your career. You don't know who you are without that title, that role, that sense of purpose your work gave you. Or maybe your marriage ended and you don't know who you are without your partner. You were somebody's wife, somebody's husband, and now you're just you and you're not sure who that is anymore. Or maybe your body changed through illness or aging or injury, and you're mourning the person you used to be, the things you used to be able to do. Or maybe your beliefs collapsed. The religion you were raised in, the worldview that held your life together, it doesn't work anymore, and you're left without the framework that told you how to understand yourself in the world. The identity break says, I don't know who I am anymore.
Everything I thought I was has shattered. And the gold for this type of break is meaning-making. It's asking, who am I becoming because of this? Not who I was, not who I wish I'd been, but who I'm becoming now. You pour gold by creating new stories about yourself. I'm someone who survived loss and found resilience. I'm someone who reinvented myself at 50. I'm someone whose scars taught me compassion. I'm someone who lost everything and discovered I still had myself. The identity break is terrifying because it feels like you're losing yourself, but what you're actually losing is a limited version of who you are, and what emerges, if you pour gold into that crack, is a truer, deeper, more authentic self. The second type of break is the relationship break. This is when connection shatters. Divorce, betrayal, death of someone you love, estrangement from family, a friendship ending suddenly or fading slowly, someone you loved becoming someone you don't recognize anymore. The relationship break says, I'm alone now in a way I wasn't before. There's an emptiness where connection used to be, and that emptiness is unbearable. The gold for relationship breaks is vulnerability and new connections. Not replacing what was lost because you can't replace people, but allowing the crack to become a place where deeper, more authentic connection can grow. You pour gold by letting people see your wounds, by being honest about your pain instead of pretending you're fine, by building new relationships on truth instead of performance. Often, relationship breaks reveal which connections were real and which ones were fragile, which friendships can hold your pain and which ones can't. The gold is discovering who stays when you're broken. The gold is the deeper bonds that form when you stop pretending to be unbroken. The gold is learning that you can survive even profound loneliness, and that survival makes you capable of deeper connection than you ever had when you were afraid of being alone. The third type of break is the dream break. This is when what you hoped for doesn't happen. The career that didn't pan out the way you imagined, the child you couldn't have, the future you planned that will never arrive, the version of your life you thought you'd be living by now, but you're nowhere close. The dream break says, the life I wanted is not the life I have, and I don't know how to accept that. The gold for dream breaks is acceptance and redirection. You pour gold by grieving what won't be, really grieving it, acknowledging, I wanted this, I hoped for this, I worked toward this, and it's not going to happen. And that's a real loss that deserves real grief. But then, after the grief, you ask, what wants to be born from this? What new dream is trying to emerge? What path is opening up now that wasn't visible when I was fixated on the old dream? Sometimes dream breaks redirect us towards purposes we never would have discovered if the original dream had worked out. The gold is finding that your plan B, your unplanned life, has depths and meanings your plan A never would have reached. So, right now, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, which type of break am I experiencing? Is it an identity break, a relationship break, or a dream break? Name it. And then ask, what kind of gold does this break need? Because you can't pour the right gold until you understand the nature of the crack. Now, let me tell you something that might be hard to hear, but that you need to understand. Western culture is built on the illusion of perfection, and it's killing us. We live in a world where everyone's life looks perfect on social media, where people only share their highlights, their successes, their best angles, where filters and Photoshop and careful curation create the illusion that everyone else has it together. Everyone else is whole. Everyone else is unbroken, and you're the only one who's shattered. But here's the truth. Everyone is broken. Every single person you know has cracks. The person with the perfect Instagram? Broken. The colleague who seems to have it all together? Broken. Your friend who always knows what to say? Broken. Your neighbor with the beautiful house and the happy family? Broken. We are all walking around like shattered pottery, pretending we're still whole, performing perfection while hiding our cracks. And the performance is destroying us. Because here's what happens when you spend your life pretending to be unbroken. You become profoundly lonely. You can't connect authentically with anyone because you're showing them a filtered version of yourself. You live in constant fear of being found out, of someone discovering that you're not as perfect as you appear. You're exhausted from maintaining the facade. And worst of all, you can't heal. Because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. You can't transform what you keep hidden. Hidden wounds fester. Acknowledged wounds heal. Japanese Kintsugi culture does the exact opposite. It says, show the cracks, make them visible, honor them, display them. Because when you make your cracks visible and fill them with gold, with meaning, with compassion, with story, something miraculous happens. Other broken people feel safe around you. They take off their masks too. They say, me too. I thought I was the only one. They share their own cracks. And suddenly, you're not alone anymore. You're in community. You're connected not through the performance of perfection, but through the honesty of brokenness. And that kind of connection, that's real. That's the connection that actually heals.
So here's what I want you to do. Here's the practice. Here's how you actually pour gold into your own cracks. Step 1, the inventory. Sit quietly with a journal. No distractions, no phone, just you and a blank page. And ask yourself, where am I broken right now? Don't rush this. Let the answers come. Write them down. What relationships have shattered? What version of myself did I lose? What dreams died? What failures still carry shame? What trauma left cracks that never healed? Don't judge what comes up. Don't evaluate whether you should be over it by now. Just witness. Just name. Just acknowledge. These are my breaks. This is where I shattered. You cannot repair what you will not acknowledge. Step 2, the grief. For each break you named, allow yourself to grieve. Really grieve. Not the performative grief where you tell yourself you should be grateful for the lesson. Not the rushed grief where you try to get over it as fast as possible, but real, deep, honest grief. Feel the loss. Cry if you need to. Rage if you need to. Sit with the unbearable weight of what's gone. Because you can't pour gold into cracks you're still pretending don't exist. The Japanese honor the original object before repairing it. They acknowledge what it was, what it meant, what was lost when it broke. You must do the same for yourself. Honor who you were, what you had, what you hoped for, before you can transform through the breaking. Say out loud or write in your journal, I grieve what was lost. I grieve my marriage. I grieve my father. I grieve the career that didn't happen. I grieve the version of myself that's gone. I grieve the future I planned that will never arrive. It mattered. It was real. And it's okay that I'm sad about this. It's okay that it still hurts. Grief is not weakness. Grief is love with nowhere to go. And honoring that grief is the first step toward pouring gold. Step 3. The compassion. This is where the gold actually begins. Instead of hating yourself for being broken, meet yourself with kindness. Place your hand on your heart right now. Feel the warmth of your own touch. Take a breath and say, either out loud or silently, I'm in pain. This is really hard. May I be kind to myself in this moment. This isn't self-pity. This is self-compassion. It's treating yourself the way you would treat a beloved friend going through the same thing, with gentleness, with patience, with the understanding that healing isn't linear and that broken things don't repair overnight. The gold starts here, with kindness toward your own broken parts, with refusing to add shame on top of pain, with holding yourself gently while you heal. Step 4, the meaning. Every single evening before you go to bed, ask yourself one question. What is this break teaching me? Not why did this happen, because often there's no satisfying answer to that, but what can I learn? What am I discovering about myself through this? What strength am I finding that I didn't know I had? What matters now that I see more clearly? What don't I take for granted anymore? Write the answers down. This is you consciously pouring gold. You're taking raw pain and transmuting it into wisdom. My divorce is teaching me what I really need in a partnership. My failure is teaching me that my worth isn't tied to achievement. My loss is teaching me to treasure what remains. My illness is teaching me the preciousness of ordinary moments. These lessons, this wisdom, This is the gold. Step 5, the visibility. And this one is scary, but it's essential. At some point, when you're ready, stop hiding your breaks. You don't have to share everything with everyone. You don't have to post your trauma on social media for likes, but find safe people, trusted people, and tell them the truth. Say, this broke me, and here's what I learned. Here's who I became. Here's where the gold is. When you make your golden cracks visible, you give others permission to stop hiding theirs. You become a Kintsugi person in a world full of people pretending to be unbroken. And that's how healing becomes contagious. That's how one person's courage to be real creates safety for everyone around them to be real too. And then, the daily ritual. Every morning, before you start your day, take 2 minutes. Place your hand on your heart. Feel your own heartbeat and say, I am a Kintsugi person. My cracks are where my gold goes. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be true. And my truth is this. I broke, and I survived, and I'm becoming more beautiful because of it. Throughout the day, when shame about your breaks arises, when you catch yourself thinking, I'm damaged, I'm less than, no one will want me like this, return to this. Say it again. This is not a flaw. This is where the gold goes. This is my story. This is my beauty. Let me come back to where we started. I told you about sitting in that empty apartment 3 years ago, feeling like a shattered vase, believing I was damaged beyond repair, convinced that no one would want the broken version of me. That was true. That was my reality at that moment. But here's what I didn't know then. I didn't know that the breaking would become the most important thing that ever happened to me. Not because breaking is good. It's not. It's terrible. But because of what I chose to do with the breaking. I chose to stop hiding the cracks. I chose to stop pretending I was still the person I was before everything fell apart. I chose to pour gold into every broken place. Gold in the form of therapy and tears and honest conversations and learning to be gentle with myself. Gold in the form of asking, what is this teaching me, instead of why did this happen to me? Gold in the form of meaning-making and community and letting people see me as I actually was, not as I wished I appeared. And slowly, month by month, year by year, something shifted. The shame lifted. The feeling of being damaged goods faded. Not because I stopped being broken. I'm still broken in many ways. We all are. But because I stopped seeing brokenness as diminishment and started seeing it as transformation. The cracks are still there. They always will be. But now they're filled with gold. And that gold, it's made me more real, more compassionate, more capable of deep connection than I ever was when I was trying to be perfect. So here's what I want you to remember, especially on the days when the shame tries to convince you that you're too broken to be loved, too damaged to be valuable, too shattered to ever be whole again. I am not broken in a way that makes me less. I am broken in a way that makes me beautiful. My cracks are not my failure. They are my story. My scars are not my shame. They are my strength. I am a Kintsugi person, and the gold is already flowing into my cracks. Every day I choose compassion over shame. I pour more gold. Every day I choose meaning over bitterness. The gold gets brighter. Every day I choose authenticity over performance. The gold becomes more visible. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be true. And my truth is this. I survived. I'm here. And my golden cracks are the most beautiful part of me. Write that down. Put it on your mirror. Say it when you look at yourself and see your imperfections. Say it when someone asks how you're doing and you're tempted to say, fine, when you're not. Say it when the shame whispers you're damaged. Because you're not damaged, you're Kintsugi. And Kintsugi is art.
If this perspective shifted something in you, if you can see your breaks differently now, if you feel even slightly less ashamed of your cracks, hit that like button. It tells me these 500-year-old teachings are still healing hearts today, that ancient wisdom still matters in our modern world. And if you want more of this, Japanese philosophy that sees your scars as art, wisdom that honors your humanity instead of demanding perfection, teachings that say your broken parts are where your beauty lives, subscribe to Wisdom Forgotten. We're building something sacred here, a community of Kintsugi people, People who are done pretending to be unbroken and ready to be beautifully, authentically, visibly cracked and golden. People who understand that the cracks are not the end of the story, they're the beginning of the masterpiece. Leave a comment. Tell me, what break in your life is ready for gold? What crack have you been hiding that's actually where your beauty lives? I read every single comment. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And when you share your truth, when you make your cracks visible, you pour gold not just for yourself, but for everyone reading who's been too afraid to acknowledge their own breaks. Your vulnerability gives them permission. Your honesty creates safety. Your golden cracks light the way for others still sitting in the dark, thinking they're too broken to be beautiful. And if someone you love is drowning in shame about their broken parts right now, if you know someone who's trying desperately to hide their cracks, who's exhausted from the performance of perfection, who needs to hear that broken things don't lose value, share this video with them. Not as a fix, not as advice, but as a reminder, as permission, as an invitation to stop hiding and start healing, to stop performing and start being real, to stop seeing their breaks as flaws and start seeing them as places where gold can go. In Japanese museums, the Kintsugi pieces sit behind glass, protected, treasured, priceless. People travel from all over the world to see them. They stand in front of these repaired bowls and vases and they marvel, not at the perfection, at the survival, at the visible proof that something broke and was made more beautiful because of it, not despite the breaking, because of it. Those golden cracks, they tell a story. They say, this object was loved enough to be repaired. It was precious enough to save. It was valuable enough to deserve gold. You are that piece. Your life is that bowl, and every crack, every break, every place where you shattered into pieces on the floor, they're all waiting for gold. Not to hide them, not to make them disappear, not to pretend they never happened, but to honor them, to fill them with something precious, to make them luminous, to make them art, to make them the most beautiful part of your story. The bowl in the museum started as rubble, as dozens of broken pieces scattered across a floor, pieces that looked like garbage, like something to throw away, and someone gathered them one by one and said, this is too precious to waste. This deserves gold. This deserves to be made beautiful. Let's honor what broke. Let's fill the cracks with something that shines. Let's create something more valuable than the original ever was. That someone is you, for yourself, starting today, starting right now. Gather your broken pieces, all of them, even the ones you've been trying to throw away, even the ones that seem too shattered to repair, even the ones covered in shame. Gather them, hold them gently, and say, this is too precious to waste. I am too precious to waste. These cracks deserve gold. I deserve gold. And then begin. Begin the sacred work of pouring, of meaning-making, of self-compassion, of honoring what broke instead of hiding it, of filling every crack with the gold of your own healing. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be Kintsugi. And Kintsugi is always more beautiful than perfect ever was, because perfect has no story, perfect has no depth, perfect has no soul. But Kintsugi, those golden cracks, they tell everyone who sees them, this survived. This was broken and chose to heal. This poured gold into the darkness. This became art. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember this. You're not broken, you're becoming. And the cracks, they're exactly where the light gets in. They're exactly where the gold goes. They're exactly where your beauty lives. Gather your pieces, honor what shattered, and pour the gold. The world is waiting to see your masterpiece.